Wasn't Chrome Excel used in World War II?
They use it in service trucks and in tanks. There's certainly more uses, but what they were using it for was like motor seals. And the reason that the leather seals, they still exist today, they moved away from leather seals and moved to synthetic stuff, which is cheaper. But the reason that the old timers liked the leather seals is it wasn't like a binary sort of functionality. With a synthetic seal, it's either working or it's completely not working. Where a leather one sort of slowly degrades. And back then, like even when I was working at the tannery, like these guys know what the machine sounds like and they can feel it. Like the vibration might change. So you might imagine like a service truck driver in World War One, like, hey, my truck sounds a little different, or like this feels strange. Like, let's take a look, and they would notice the things before they'd break. So that's where those pieces of leather, Chrome Excel specifically, was used. In World War II, it was still used for motor seals, but they found another function for it. And you might look this up, and you might have heard of this, called marine field chew, which is if you take natural Chrome Excel and flip it for rough out, they were making these rough out natural Chrome Excel plain toe boots, and they would use it in northern Africa during World War II when they would get sand in the boots. They found that smooth Chrome Excel feel would more easily remove. You could just dump out the sand, as opposed to the like suede sort of flesh side of the Chrome Excel would get a little bit more embedded in there. So you saw a lot of that being used for boots in World War II.
And that's what I love about leather is the history and the different applications it's been used for in history. And in fact, before we started, I was nerding out on your blog.
Honestly, like I put a lot of time into writing some of those, so I'm glad that you read it. Somebody read it.
Right. No, the best thing that you posted was General Pershing's
his 100-year-old letter.
Yes, and he was talking about back then. He was saying, we would like to request wine or dark brown butts, and to pick out extra good butts, as these were to make riding boots for high government officials.
It's also so badass to read, like just the lingo that they used.
Yes,
like there's a part where he like describes the way that they look.
Yeah, let's see. He says, these butts are to make riding boots for General Pershing. Some time ago, we sold a few number 1 Cordovan butts to the secretary of Congressman Phelan, a brother of a Lin shoe manufacturer, who made a pair of riding boots for Colonel Sweetser.
Yeah. Apparently, Sweetser was like a big deal. And this is the next paragraph. It caught his eye, basically.
It happened that Colonel Sweetser walked into General Pershing's office wearing said riding boots, and these riding boots took General Pershing's eye. His aide tried to get a pair of these boots in London and in Paris, but was unable to do so. So he asked Colonel Sweetser's aide where the colonel got the boots, and it was finally traced to I, Horween and Co. So inasmuch as these butts are for such a distinguished gentleman, everyone is so anxious to give him the very best.
I love that. Sweetser's aide where the colonel got the boots, and it was finally traced to I, Horween and Co. So, in as much as these butts are for such a distinguished gentleman, everyone is quite anxious to give him the very best. It's like, man, you guys like spoke or wrote incredibly 100 years ago.
They were so eloquent, the way they wrote. It's astounding, actually.
I mean, they must have had like, I wonder what it would be like to send a telegram, which that is what that is. It's a copy of a telegram. So I wonder it would be like, because they can't like, hey dude, sorry, I meant to send, like I meant to write this. Like it's kind of like a big deal to like fix something. So I wonder if they spend just so much more time like proofreading or whatever.
Probably, yeah. I'm seeing here it was a night lettergram by the Telegram Cable Company.
Yeah. Does that still exist? Probably not.
No, I guarantee you it does not.
And then the bottom, there's the actual ad from Faulkner and Son.
Yes.
For military work, the best boots are essential. Faulkner and Son make nothing but the best and are equipping thousands of British officers with footwear. Right for descriptive booklets of boots, leggings, and spurs. Also self-measurement apparatus. Yes. Regimented if unable to call.
Just the best advertisements back then. And I see the part where I think you were talking about, they talked about the appearance. James L. Collins said, I trust that you will pardon my writing to ask if you could give me the address or order for me sufficient Cordovan leather for a pair of boots that I am anxious to have made. General Edwards came into our office some time ago wearing a very handsome pair of
Yeah.
boots.
Yes.
When I asked his aide where he'd gotten the leather from, he referred me to you. I tried to get some of this leather while in London and was informed that it could not be obtained anywhere but in the United States, and General Edwards' aide gave me your address and said you might be able to help me out. If you will please give me the address or order shipped to me, Colonel James L. Collins, Headquarters AEF, France, leather for one pair of boots, I will be very greatly indebted to you. Thanking you in advance for the trouble I am putting you to. I am very truly yours, James L. Collins, Colonel FAADC.
Very handsome.
Yes, and he was a handsome man.
If and when you ever get a chance to come visit us,
Yeah.
you walk in the door at Horween, and that letter is like right there. It's crazy. That's the interesting thing about Horween is like in Chicago, we have a museum of natural history called the Field Museum, and Horween is basically a museum that is a profitable private business. It's not a museum, but
Yeah, it's a
it's
museum that's still in operation, essentially.
it's wild. I mean, I did a video this year with Skip Horween. It was about the thickness of the leather. First of all, like I made a video about like how thick is leather, and like thousands of people watched it, which is like it's hilarious to me because it's so down the well. It's like just so deep that like what could possibly be interesting there, but it turns out like there's so much interesting stuff. And one of the things from that interview that Skip described is the splitting machines that they use. The technology hasn't really changed, so they're still using machines from like 1900, if I remember correctly, and they just sort of service them consistently and just keep it repaired. Those things are properly maintained and they can last you forever. The other crazy thing is that building was built before electricity, and back before electricity, all this stuff was sort of like steam powered. You could look closely if you go to the alley behind the tannery. There's still railroad tracks like in the alley, and those railroad tracks weren't for trains necessarily. They were for like carts to come off of barges that were just like a mining cart just full of coal, and these dudes would just shovel coal into their boilers that would turn a wheel that would turn a belt to another wheel. And then I imagine a tannery or like any industrial building in the Industrial Revolution was just like a massive just network of like pulleys and belts going from floor to floor, and they would connect directly to each machine off of that one like coal powered pulley. It's pretty wild, and you can see how they've modified these old pulleys to be driven by an electric motor now. But if you ever walk in there, take a look in the ceiling, and there's old fans that were, you can see the belt drives for these old fans. It's literally a museum, and they don't seem too interested to like take those old things out. They just kind of leave it there, which again is like, I think it's charming. It's not necessarily like maybe the best business thing, but then again, maybe it is, because it's interesting and different. The tannery at Horween is built in such a terrible like modern manufacturing way. It's such an ad hoc system where they go, well, we need to, whatever machine it is, we need to split, and we're going to get a new splitting machine. Where do we put it? And they wouldn't say like, okay, where does it make most sense for like efficiency? They would say like, all right, we don't have any room. Like, where are we going to put this? So they just kind of put it like wherever they can. And that's a big problem when you have a product like Shell Cordovan that takes 6 months to make. You're going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's so inefficient, and it's sort of just an inherent problem with being in the city of Chicago with a 5-story building. Modern tanneries are one floor, and it's a big U shape. You start here and you end there, and you run one product, and that's it. Where Horween's, it's basically like a custom shop, the scale that they run at compared to the rest of the world. So they're not necessarily going for efficiency, which may be good, may be bad, but it's certainly a challenge and like an interesting thing to observe if you ever check it out there in person.
Well, what I like about all that you're talking about, especially the old apparatus and everything that's in place, is like it pays homage to the heritage that it has.